Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Cafecito and Cane show. We are here to react to the latest rankings drop, and Miami did not move up or down. They remain at number 12, which is kind of what I expected. I was hoping for a bit of a miracle, but I knew it was a long shot at best. Miami remains at 12. Something that surprised me a little bit, though, is Notre Dame moved down to 10 and Alabama moved up after barely beating Auburn. But as we know, the CFB committee values wins in the SEC, even though it's a win against a crappy 5-7 Auburn team. They're going to look at it differently because it's that conference. And really, Alabama should have dropped in the rankings. Oklahoma also should have dropped in the rankings because I don't know if any of you watched that game between LSU and Oklahoma. LSU honestly looked like the better team. They just kept coughing up opportunities on offense. But it is what it is. Anyway, Miami, again, remains at 12, meaning they still have a chance. They still have, they're hanging on by a freaking thread at this point, but they have a chance. Vanderbilt and Texas are virtually out, so they're kind of off our tails now. Miami's done playing their game, so they can't fall any further. They are at 12. Notre Dame is at 10. BYU is at 11. Now, what that basically sets up is a lot of Miami fans watching that Big 12 championship game. Between Texas Tech and BYU. Now, Texas Tech should be a pretty heavy favorite in that game. BYU really has not beaten anybody, even though they are 11-1. So they deserve some credit for that. And they're in the conversation because of it, but they really haven't beaten anybody. They're going to get a chance to beat somebody. And if they don't, if Texas Tech wins, again, as expected, that should push BYU below Miami. That should move Miami up to 11. So then that will put Notre Dame and Miami 10 and 11 right next to each other, which is what we want. Because when they're right next to each other, then the committee is going to be forced to have the conversation of, okay, now they're next to each other. This is what we wanted to avoid, but now it's here. Should we do the flip-flop now? Well, common sense would tell you that two teams that faced off against one another and one, the team that's ranked lower won earlier in the year. Strength of schedule, strength of record, all that stuff is pretty comparable. The records are the same. Both teams looked really good down the stretch. Some would say Miami looked a tad better, but again, now you're getting into subjectives. You're getting into opinion when the facts are the facts. Strength of schedule, comparable. Strength of record, comparable. Both teams are healthy. Both teams, speaking in generalities here, looked really good down the stretch, dominated down the stretch. The one glaring difference, and I know people say, oh, well, it's just one metric. It's a pretty damn big metric when everything else being equal. Miami beat Notre Dame. This is a sport at the end of the day. And the way things are decided is on the field. Miami won, period. So here's the deal. You'd have Miami 11th, Notre Dame 10th. So if that scenario happens where BYU loses on Saturday and drops below Miami, now you're forced to have that conversation. And the committee may have to make a decision there, or they will have to make a decision there. So that's just my thought. I think as stupid as it is, moving Alabama up after such a crappy win that they had. I mean, they did not look impressive at all. They haven't looked impressive the last couple of games, honestly. But it helps us. You push Notre Dame down to 10th, and it sets up that situation where, Miami, Notre Dame were right next to each other in the rankings. Now that inevitable flip can't happen. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. But it's not over yet. Hey, John, doesn't look good. File antitrust lawsuit right now. We should have been playing offense like this all season. Honest, but Mario wanted to experiment with caveman football, and it cost us. CFB chairman is an active AD in the SEC. No active AD should be involved at all. I 100% agree. The fact that it's made up of athletic directors, I think that in itself is very strange. It should be like former players and former coaches, like people that aren't involved in the game currently at all. Did you hear him call the Alabama win gutsy? Yeah, that's the thing. That's the bias that the SEC gets. We beat Stanford 42-7, and they call it Stanford was in the game. When I was at the game, they couldn't complete a pass in the first half. I knew we were fine. Everybody in the stadium knew we were fine. But they call that an unimpressive win, winning 42-7. But beating an Auburn team that, again, is not good at all, but because it's in the Southeastern Conference and it's a rivalry, it's a culture win. It's gutsy. When Oregon beat Iowa, it's a gutsy win. We don't get the same courtesy. Even beating a ranked ACC team, we don't get the same courtesy. We went out there and waxed a pretty good Pittsburgh team. A Pittsburgh team that I think they finished 8-4 as a result. Or no, I think they finished, was it 9-3 or 8-4? Might have been 9-3. I don't remember. But they were ranked 22 in their house, in the cold. We went up there and kicked their ass. Now, we'll stay in the same spot. Really, that alone should have moved us up a spot if they're really looking at this objectively, not subjectively. You should have let them. Facts, but it still sucks. Let's see if I'm missing anything here. Surprised they kept Ole Miss in despite Kiffin leaving for FSU. Yeah, I just explained that. They're the SEC. If it was FSU, they would have left them out for sure. And don't tell me that losing your head coach doesn't matter as much. Need I remind you, in the year 2000, speaking of FSU, that was the year that they got in instead of us, even though we beat FSU head-to-head in an all-time classic wide right three. Both teams were 10-1. Miami lost to a good Washington team on the road early in the season. FSU lost to Miami. Rest of the way, Miami and FSU dominate their games. It's a contest of who's beating who by more. The computer polls were a thing back then, and FSU got in over Miami, even though Miami beat them head-to-head. FSU goes to the championship game down here in the Orange Bowl, eerily similar to what's happening now. Championship games in Miami in the Orange Bowl. FSU goes on to face undefeated Oklahoma, led by Josh Heupel at quarterback. And FSU ends up losing 13-2. I'll never forget that final score because it was a very odd final score. I thought FSU was going to annihilate them because this is the late 90s, early 2000s, like Chris Winkie, Florida State, that would just put 50 on everybody. They lost 13-2. Why? I'll tell you why. Not because they lost their head coach. Bobby Bowden, as we know, was there and remained there for an additional decade after that. They lost their offensive coordinator, Mark Richt. He was going to take the job at Georgia. And I don't remember if he ended up coaching the game or not. He might have left to go start recruiting and stuff at Georgia. I don't remember if he stayed with FSU to coach that game, but something like that really affects a team. And don't be surprised if Ole Miss gets bounced in the first round and gets bounced embarrassingly, depending on who they play. So don't tell me that kind of stuff doesn't matter, because it does. It does affect the locker room a lot. Another example, back in 2000, I want to say 2010, it was when Brian Kelly was at Cincinnati, 2009, 2010. It was 2009. It was Tim Tebow's last year, if I'm not mistaken. It was Tim Tebow's final game with the Gators. And they were facing, excuse me, let me grab my charger so computer doesn't die while I'm on the air. It was Cincinnati had an undefeated year with Brian Kelly. all of a sudden he takes the Notre Dame job. Great hire by them at the time. He had just gone undefeated with Cincinnati. Cincinnati was on their way to go face Florida, I believe, in the Sugar Bowl that year. And Brian Kelly up and leaves his team high and dry. They're about to play the biggest game of their life. And I know, you got to go get a head start on recruiting and make sure you lock in your class. I get it. But, man, when you're leaving behind a team that's playing for something big, I don't think that's right. That's just my opinion, similar to what Lane Kiffin did here. Long story short, the Gators end up destroying Cincinnati in that game. Now, would they have still destroyed Cincinnati in that game? Maybe. They had more talent, but I really think, out of the gate, I remember watching that game. They just got embarrassed. I really believe Brian Kelly up and leaving his team high and dry had an effect on that team. So, yeah, Chris, I know it says in the CFP guidelines, which, by the way, they have not followed at all, that if you have an injury to a key player or if a coach leaves or something, that's going to be taken into account. Clearly not. Only when it suits their argument. And this thing of cramming in as many SEC schools as possible, yeah, it drives me freaking crazy. But that's going to be the case moving forward in all likelihood. In fact, if they do expand it to 16 or 24 teams in the future, that just means they're going to try to cram 20 teams in the – are there even 20 SEC teams? I don't know. They're going to try to cram the entire conference into the freaking playoffs. I don't know. Let's see. Pitt's currently 9-3? Okay. So it would have been 10-2 had they beaten us. All right. Yeah, that's a solid team we just destroyed. Let's see. We are the best team in the country, and we get to go back to Orlando, and you want a Pop-Tart. I hope not. I hope it's the Gator Bowl or the Tax Slayer Bowl or something. Something other than that. Because the fact that it's called the Pop-Tart Bowl is what makes it a joke. It's the name of the bowl that does it for me. Let's see. Bama will be in regardless. If they lose the SEC championship, the CFB is protecting Bama. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Just call it the SEC Invitational. That's basically what it's becoming, the SEC Big Ten Invitational, and that's why teams are rushing to join that league. Creating two super leagues is not the answer, because what's going to end up happening is they're just going to be broken down into divisions again. It's going to go back to square one where we were before, where you had the ACC, the Big East, the Pac-12, and all those conferences had like equal amount of people. I would love to go back to those days, honestly, and have not only the Big East, but it be strong again. That'd be great. Sarcasm, can we go back? Listen, not sarcasm. I would love if we had like 6 to 8 solid conferences. You know what I mean? I would love that. I would like to win the bowl no matter what. I would too, George, but man, bowl games now, they're glorified preseason games is what they are. Where, yeah, you might get a starter to play, but maybe they play a quarter or a half. For the most part, they don't play it. It's kind of like, you remember how it was when it was 4 preseason games in the NFL, and that 4th game, none of your starters would play, and like no one would care. It's kind of become that, especially if you're a really good team that's got a lot of NFL guys, which we do. You're going to have Maui Noah and Bain and Beck and in all likelihood Fletcher, probably Malachi Toney, all these guys not playing. So I don't know. It shouldn't even count for the record, honestly, or just eliminate those games altogether. I know that's not going to happen, but what's the point of these non-playoff bowl games? They're not what they used to be at all. Moving forward, we shouldn't play in big games anymore since it's clear it doesn't matter. Miami just has less margin for error than these teams in the big conferences, unfortunately. Is it too much to ask Miami Hurricanes to go undefeated in the ACC? We dodged Georgia Tech, Clemson, down FSU, and we can't win the ACC and go undefeated. Look, we should have beaten SMU, absolutely. But if you kind of step back and look big picture, we still went 10-2 for the second straight year. You lost. It's not so much that we lost games, it's that we lost the wrong games. You won your biggest games on paper, but you lost the wrong games. That was the problem. But even then, I come back at you with this. We're 6-2 in the conference. Duke is 6-2 in the conference. Why is overall ranking not the tiebreaker? I don't understand that. I thought it was going into the season. Apparently not. It's opponent winning percentage and all this other BS. No. Overall ranking. Make it easy. Make your lives easy. You do it by overall ranking, you're kind of guaranteeing that, the better team goes to the championship game, which is what should have happened here. Miami, and this isn't even up for discussion, is the best team in the conference, especially the way they're playing right now. You want to use the whole, how are we looking now argument? Okay, we've been dominating lately. That's how we look right now. We're better than we were week 1 when we beat Notre Dame. You go to the conference championship game right now against, you name it, Georgia Tech, whose defense is broken right now, SMU, who honestly, as they're a solid team, but we handed them the freaking game with a big time assist by the referees. I'm not that guy usually that blames the refs, but oh my God, there were so many bad calls and no calls in that game. That was maddening watching that game, how badly we were screwed. Yes, we screwed ourselves as well with all the penalties, but my God, you're not going to bring your A game every day. It's impossible. We're not Ohio State. We're not at that level yet. So when you need a little bit of help in the form of, good officiating, we don't get it. And that, unfortunately, is not fair. But my point is, no matter who you play in the ACC championship game, Miami would have absolutely waxed them. It's not even close. Picking up that pass interference. Yep, that was a big one. It's not even the one I'm talking about. Bane's still getting held. Yes, Kane Swag, absolutely. Bane was getting held all day that game. They finally threw the flag towards the end of the game once. Yeah, you still owe us like 2,000 other ones, but whatever. Yeah, picking up the pass interference. And to add insult to injury, they call holding on one of our guys. It's like, at worst case, it should have been offsetting penalties. But whatever. They picked up a clear pass interference call that would have set up us like in the red zone, and we probably would have scored, probably, and iced that game. The hit by Lightfoot. Yes, Joshua, the terrible roughing the passer. The hit by Lightfoot, which clearly he held up. Should he have stopped? Yeah. But you're in the heat of the moment. It's 4th down. The game's on the line. You also have to understand that as a referee, he held up, clearly. He even kept held the guy from hitting the ground. They still threw the flag. Yeah, I won't get into the SMU game because that's a 3-hour episode if we really break down and talk about who refereed that game and all that stuff. As bad as we played, we should have beaten Louisville, losing 24-20. Beck was bad in that game. Yeah, Beck was bad in that game. Beck wasn't even bad in the SMU game. He was solid in that game. It was the final play, the interception where JoJo got tackled in the middle of the end zone, and that took away one of his passing options. That's another one that I'm talking about, but whatever. I digress. We're far and away at this very moment the best team in the ACC. If the tiebreaker rules were different and actually made sense, it would be us playing Virginia, and we'd absolutely destroy them. Then we go into the playoff, and honestly, I like how we match up against some of the teams in the playoffs. Not all of them, obviously. There's a few teams that are going to be better than us, but there's a few teams that are not. And Nick Saban said it himself. If we were to make the playoffs somehow, Miami would be one of the most dangerous teams in the tournament. And I fully agree with them with the way we're playing right now. let's see. We didn't score enough points. You have to score points. Mario didn't understand until the last 4 games, unfortunately. I look at it 2 ways. Yeah, I wish Mario had come to this realization before the SMU game, but I think the SMU game had to happen. The pain of that game had to happen for him to like change his ways. And it really seemed like he did change his ways. And I hope this change continues moving forward, because if it does, holy crap, if we get a quarterback next year, it's looking, the future is looking real good. And I'm talking the immediate future, like next year. So you could look at it one of 2 ways. I choose to look at it that way, that yeah, that SMU game sucked. The Louisville game sucked, but those games did need to happen, because otherwise Mario wouldn't have changed his ways, and maybe we lose later in the season. He needed to have this realization to kind of get over the hump, because that was kind of like the last remaining thing for him to get out of his own way. But he understands it now, which is good. There was a question here I wanted to get to. Oh, number 1, Kane. Thank you, sir. I want the Cal QB. I would love the Cal QB. He'd be amazing. He'd be amazing in this system. With the weapons we put around him and the offensive line, yeah. What if Bama and BYU both lose? Do we have a chance? This is the question I wanted to get to. I was talking about it earlier at the beginning of the show. If BYU loses, they'll fall beneath us, and we have a chance. Now, part of me thinks, the conspiracy theorist in me thinks, that they moved Alabama up to ensure that they get in no matter what, because they favor that conference. Fine, whatever. They get in no matter what happens in their title game. And at the same time, you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, because they're like, oh, we'll move Notre Dame to 10th. And if BYU loses, as we're expecting, now us fixing our mistake from before looks justified, and we don't look so stupid. There's a little part of me that thinks the committee's like, okay, we screwed up, because everyone's coming for the committee right now. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Everybody. Friggin' Saban's got our back. Greg McElroy, JD Pickell, Josh Pate, and those guys have big and growing followings, especially with the younger audience. Colin Cowherd, Paul Feinbaum, all these guys have come out in defense of Miami, all of them. And also talking about what a sham this committee selection process is, So because of that, the last couple of weeks specifically, the committee has looked really stupid. Okay? And I think part of the reason they moved Bama up and Notre Dame down is to set up this scenario where they can flip-flop it back, right or wrong, and not look stupid. Because they can't flip us 9-12 now, because then everyone on the Notre Dame side will be up in arms, and they're basically admitting how dumb they were by doing it that way. Do it this way, they don't look so dumb. Part of me is thinking that. Let's see if it plays out that way. But if Bama loses, to answer that question, I don't think Bama losing affects this at all. I think we just need BYU to lose, and it sets up that scenario that may put us in. If Bama loses by like 3 touchdowns, then we could have a conversation where we leapfrog them as well, potentially. Or maybe Notre Dame and Miami get in and leave Bama out. I mean, they look like crap against Auburn. They got embarrassed by FSU week 1. Yes, it was week 1, but that doesn't matter. It happened this season. Every game should be graded the same. That's how all sports work. If the Red Sox beat the Yankees on opening day and they beat them on game 162 of the regular season, guess what? They count the same. That's how sports work. If you beat them last season, okay, that's a whole other discussion. I won't even get into that. Let's see, I want the Cal QB. Let's see what comments I missed down here. Sorry, I'm catching up with what you guys are saying. Joey Galloway, pissed off face. That's it. I don't even need to hear what he said. I'm sure he said something stupid. Week 1 apparently doesn't count. Yep. It's stupid having these crap G5 teams getting in only to get smoked and give a team a free W. Listen, it's great to see a G5 team get in there and compete and like pull off an upset. That's great. Upsets are great for the sport, and you see it in college basketball all the time. This is a different sport, though. This is end of the season of a very physical, emotional sport that requires depth, and those G5 teams just don't have it. So the chance of that upset happening is slim to none. Because of that, I'm a big proponent of leave the playoff at 12 teams and my thing ran. Oh, okay. My light went off. Thought it ran out of battery, but it didn't. Leave the playoff at 12 teams or shrink it back to 8 teams. Oh, yep. My light is gone. All right. I'll be quick and finish this up. But leave the playoff at 12 teams or make it 10 or 8 teams, whatever, and have the P4 teams kind of play for their own championship. So basically the top 50 to 60 teams in the country pretty much play for their championship. Group of 5 teams and below, like the bottom half of college football, they should play for their own championship. Make it like an NIT or something like that. Because honestly, they're not even playing the same sport, okay? That should be a whole separate thing. So for that reason, I don't like that, the G5 teams, they get an automatic spot. It's like, I don't know. It should be like a special scenario where like UCF in 2017, for example, they went undefeated. Okay. If there's not that many undefeated teams or one-loss teams in front of them, all right, they deserve a seat at the table. Give them a shot. See what they do. But back then it was a top 4. It was a Final Four playoff. So it didn't work at the time. I think SMU losing, though, is the problem. If SMU goes to the ACC title game, we're in today. Crazy. Yeah. You should be mad at BYU. You should be mad at BYU. You shouldn't be mad at Alabama or Oklahoma. You should be mad at Notre Dame and G5 schools. Feinbaum having our back is crazy. Marco Rubio coming to our defense. Yeah. No, like, we got a lot of people backing us right now in media and politics even. It's like, that's why I feel if BYU loses and we're neck and neck now with Notre Dame in the rankings, I don't know. I feel kind of good if that scenario comes to fruition. You know what I mean? No more automatic qualifiers. I agree, dude. You know what I would do, and I'll end with this because my light ran out of battery, even though I fully charged it, and I got this scrambling thing behind me, so I'll be quick. This is what I'll end with. The whole automatic qualifiers for conference champions. Look, I understand you win the SEC, you're the big dog, you're one of the best teams in the country. I get it. But you don't have to go prove that in a conference championship game. You know what I mean? I've always thought that college basketball, for example, or college baseball even, you have a regular season conference champion, but then you have the tournament championship, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if you win your tournament championship, in other words, you just get hot at the right time, then you get into the big dance. I don't think that should be a thing because in those conference tournaments, the big boys, let's say Duke in a typical basketball year, they don't take the tournament that seriously. If they get hot and they win it, hey, great. But it's like if they were like already a top 5 team, they're not going to take it as seriously. If they get bounced in the second round, all right, whatever, we get some rest. Yeah, I think they should eliminate those conference tournaments, to be quite honest with you. And football should adopt a similar mindset. Instead of having a conference championship game, now that there's a 12-team playoff, teams care less about that conference championship. They just care about getting into the playoff. try to get the best 12 teams in, because when you factor in conference BS, you have the mess that happened in the ACC. You have possibly Duke getting in, or Virginia. Virginia's not a bad team, but I'm sorry, they're not in the same league as that 12-team field, including Miami. I'm sorry, but unless Miami just has a really bad day that day, the way they're playing right now, they would kick Virginia's ass. So I think the whole conference thing makes things complicated. If you're the best team in the SEC or the Big Ten, guess what? You're already in. Who cares? Why do you care about a conference championship at this point? It mattered when it was when the playoff was 4 teams, or when it was the BCS and you had to be one of the top 2, and maybe that conference championship gets you in at number 2. You know, it's the deciding factor. I don't know. That's just me. I don't know about you guys, but I don't see the point of having, with the playoff field being this big now and probably going to be expanded even further. What's the point of having a conference championship game then? Who cares? Conference championship is one extra game where their team can get injured. Yeah. They're setting this up just in case Tide lose and they still get it. Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. Virginia probably beats Oklahoma. The only reason I agree with that, possibly, is because Mateer is playing with a broken hand. If it's Mateer pre-broken hand, no. I think they beat Virginia by a couple scores. Duke has no business in the playoff. Yeah, that's exactly. These are the scenarios that occur when you have this conference stuff mixed in. You know what I'm saying? If there was no conference championship, it was just, let's say you still have conferences, right? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying disband conferences, but you're number 1 in the conference. You know, you don't even bother having a conference championship game. You know, name you the regular season ACC champ, fine, whatever. But I think the way you perform overall throughout the year should have some bearing when it comes to tiebreakers and things like that. Because there's only 8 conference games. You're going to have teams log jammed at 6-2, 7-1. It's inevitable. It happens almost every year. But anyway, I call Notre Dame and cancel next season's game. I know some of you guys want to do that out of spite, but no, I want to go up to South Bend and smash them. That's what I want to do. So no, I'm not canceling that game. I'm a little old school. I want to, hey, anytime, any place, anywhere, line it up. Let's go. I want that game still. John, you're right. The way we were playing, we would destroy Virginia in the ACC championship. We would destroy anybody in the ACC, any of those other top teams. But anyway, that's it for me. Sorry about the light. Got to figure that out. But anyway, thank you for hopping on with us. And please like and subscribe. You guys have been on fire in the chat. You got 57 people in there. I know we had like 60 something in the chat at one point. Thank you guys very much for being on with me. Obviously, the regular season's over. We finished 10-2. I just want to throw this in. I know I said this in my last show, but again, very proud of the way the boys bounced back. Really came together when a lot of people had written us off and thought the season was over. It's not quite over just yet. There's still a shot. There was something to play for. The team came together. They changed their philosophy on offense. They went out. They dominated the Final 4 games. They put on a show for us, and I appreciate that. And I'm proud of the boys for doing that. Some guys made themselves some money, for sure, for future NFL tape. And, man, this 10-2 feels a million times better than last year's 10-2. It feels a million times better. I feel great heading into the offseason now. Chris Gons, thank you very much. All right, guys. Have a good night. Go Canes. I will catch you all on Thursday.